In the interesting story, Max de Wit was appointed East Africa General Manager of Nissan East Africa on 1st October 2018. This as part of the global car makers' strategy to decentralize the continent into West, East and Central Africa to get closer to its clients. Now, de Wit is this week's Captain of Industry, and that episode of Captains of Industry is what I will leave you with. Stay with us. Thank you. My name is Malika Kazia.
Nissan has been synonymous with motoring in Kenya for years, almost 60 in fact. The brand is so prevalent that minibus taxis are generally referred to as Nissans, even when they're not. Max de Wit is the regional manager for East Africa. De Wit has spent his entire career in the transport industry, first as the fleet manager of South African energy utility Eskom, and then for the last 23 years at Nissan. De Wit joins me for a drive as we discuss his interest in the automotive sector.
Max, have you always liked big cars?
It's not a question of big cars, it's more a question of I like the practicality of it, because my interests and my hobbies are camping and, you know, going a bit off-road and so on. So you need a proper 4x4 to be able to do that. And so, yes, that's really why I'm driving a 4x4 and a big car. So that is the biggest reason for it.
Yeah, and you know, you've been in the auto industry for 23 years now. When you're looking to buy a car, what are some of the myths and the reality that people should know that you can advise them on?
Okay, so I think the reality is price. And everybody wants to have a big car or a nice car, but price is probably the biggest deciding factor for somebody who wants to buy a car. And based on the price, people will then start looking around in terms of what needs they have. So I think you'll still be able for a good price to pick up a good 4x4 if you want to do the kind of lifestyle and hobbies that I'm particularly interested in. So, you know, you could go and look for a second-hand car. I think some people in Kenya are lucky in a way that you could potentially source from second-hand cars and get a good value for money vehicle, you know, that you could go and take off road and perhaps not worry so much about a hot scratch or whatever. So I think price, I think if you look at young people, price would play a big role for them. And so thereafter, they should be considering, do I need a big car? No. Do I look at fuel consumption? Do I look at maintenance? Do I look at parts availability? If I can service with the guys where I bought it from, or do I actually, am I able to take it to an engineering company which will particularly service cars that are out of warranty? Running cost obviously is very important. Like I just said, what is the cost of maintenance and parts? And I think maintenance and parts even overshadows sometimes the retail price of the vehicle, because you can pay X for a vehicle and it's a wow, you know, bargain, but in the long run it costs you a fortune to maintain that vehicle. So one needs to tell the people, and one needs to consider that those are the very big factors that you need to take into consideration when you buy a car.
So Max, if you were not in the auto industry, what exactly would you be doing?
Okay, I would probably be a game ranger or something like that, or doing safaris, something to that effect, because that's kind of my passion.
Yeah, so your passion, you know, it is safari. And how, when you look at your job, when you look at your day job and your work, and you look at the park, you know, taking your trips, your safaris, how do you link the two? When you're at work, how do you see, when you see the park, when you see the animals, how do you link the two?
Well, I think these days it's very important for companies to also, you know, in terms of social responsibility, what are they doing to enhance communities and help communities in terms of conservation? But also, more practically, I suppose it's a question of, in the industry that I am, I actually sell the lifestyle vehicles that people can buy to actually go and enjoy the outdoors. Be it an X-Trail as a small 4x4 for a family, or a big patrol that people would particularly load up and go on a long trip, you know, off the beaten track. So if you link my work and my interests and you could sell it to people, it's definitely the lifestyle and the comfort that goes with the lifestyle, vehicles are not what they used to be in the good old days. They're very highly spec'd, they're very highly technical, and they're very capable and are able to take you where your interests will take you.
You know, taking a trip way back, when you were starting about 23 years ago, what did the car market look like, especially in Africa, and how has it transformed over time
Sure.
to today?
So the car market in around 1995, when I joined Nissan, was very different to now. I think it was dominated by used vehicles. It still is to a degree, but I think governments are taking care of what they actually are allowing into the countries, and some governments do not allow second-hand vehicles at all. In the case of South Africa, you probably have to close the plants if you allow grey vehicles to come into the market, and many people lose their jobs. So I think although the market did grow and we saw the potential and we started opening big companies within the countries, we started looking at partnerships where we could centralize companies and have partners, bigger partners looking after many countries. And so we evolved to where we are today, where we actually partners with groups where we're trying to centralize East, West and Central Africa and talk to one kind of group to actually manage our businesses in those markets, and also attempting to come back into the markets with assembly plants and stuff like that.